language being the number one identifier of who we are. So we do have one program running in education for language. I believe it's 2 nights a week. It should be more, um, but also our right to play worker. She's very good at getting the children back to land based learning. She's very active in that area. Uh, so I think the biggest thing is getting that reconnection. It's been really taken away from us since first contact. Uh, at one point, people knew their roles, they knew their language, they didn't have to question anything, and it was all based on truth. The people didn't know how to lie. So, getting back to being human and reconnecting with that spirit, is one of the main elements of who we are, that spiritual connection. And so, us getting back to those types of learning, that is the aim of our program. My perspective of Indigenous education really is about learning who you are, getting back to your roots. So our education system prior to contact was the same as the Western. Um, you know, in Western civilization, the people go to school, they go there for a number of years to finally get their diploma to say, okay, you're an expert in this area. You can now practice this with the public. Same thing for Anishinaabe. Those were the ways we learned too. We had to learn a ceremony inside and out, forward and back, and we had to show the old people that we knew it. And once we got their check mark, so to speak, them handing us that ceremony, now we can practice it. So today, it's a little different. It's kind of watered down. Um, People just kind of clutch and grab and just take what they want now. We seem to be getting away from that original instruction of how we used to live life, how we did our own education. So, to me, that education is really not forgetting who we are through spirituality mainly. That's the core of who we are because we're just here on earth for a short time. We're like spirits having a human experience. So those are the things that we really need to highlight and make that connection. So to me, you know, Indian Anishinaabe education is really about um, getting back to simpler things, common sense things. Those four original instructions, first four laws. Finding that, and because we're really preparing to go back home, and it's about steadily improving yourself every day, making that decision to improve your life for what you value it as, and that's basically um, getting back to your roots. A big part of that education, um, you can't get anywhere without healing. You know, uh, all those aspects have to come into play in regards to healing, um, self, working on yourself, steadily improving it. It's not what it's what you can do for yourself. You know, because ultimately that's who we're all responsible for. In some sense, we're all experts because no one knows our own self better than ourselves, right? So, um, so for the next 10 years, it's going to take a lot of hard work, uh, more more influence for the language, whether that be having schools on their own First Nations, more promotion of the language, because the language itself is like a living entity. It will help you um, get back to your spirit. So in the next 10 years, I see a lot of more influence in that area just on the language alone. Just being able to speak it is it's already showing in studies that it really elevates self-esteem, and you feel good about your life just knowing your own language. We're losing more and more language speakers who can understand how it truly works, how all those words and sounds connect together, the tones. So I think just as leaders, just pushing it, pushing it, uh, making it mandatory maybe for staff to learn a word a day, so that type of deal. Um, a common phrase each week, um, something that's going to help. I guess the only way to learn it is to hear it all the time. You have to surround yourself in it. So we kind of struggle having to send our kids out to provincial schools because the English language is so influential, and that's all they work with. So we don't get to hear it. They don't get to hear it at home. So I guess just these little things they'll add up over time. So we need more speakers. The biggest thing is looking back to the treaties. Um, we made this agreement with the white people. Now, um, for it to work, we're still going to have to work with them. They're going to have to support us in our endeavors, as well as what they're trying to do. So, the biggest thing about the education, it's going to be about taking care. You know, we have to. Part of that education is also understanding where we come from. We come from the earth. We are the earth. So um, that's what we have to understand. So it has to be about taking care of the earth. Now, when we look at the treaties, when the old people signed, they talked about, as long as the sun rises, as long as the water flows, as long as the grass grows, as long as there's Anishinaabe people. That's how long this treaty is supposed to last. Now, when they talk about the sun rising, they meant everywhere the sun touches. This is where this treaty is going to cover. As long as the water flows, that's all our waters, our fishing, all those rights, um, and even like the women, because the women can make Thunderbird water like Creator. So as long as the women keep making babies, that water is always going to flow. As long as the grass grows, that's everything on top of it and under it. And as long as there's Anishinaabe people. Now, Creator told us in the beginning, as long as the sun rises, yous are going to be here. So now you look at what they were thinking. They were thinking about life. How is this earth going to sustain us? So a big piece of that education is going to be about taking care. We have to work with the government of the day, and white people, so to speak, because they're part of that treaty. So we have to work together with them as to how we're going to take care of the land. It has to be about, it can't be through man-made law. It can't be through like legislation. It mainly has to be like a covenant under Creator, under God, because He's the ultimate lawmaker. So, those are the things we really have to get back to. Because if there's no land, there's no food, well, then there's no people. And then, that's the end of all our education.